Army? In the Army?
Oh, I was in the Fifth Army.
Okay. Can you describe a little bit for us what you were doing before the war started? How old were you when the war started, and what was your life like?
Uh, I was training to be a carpenter. I was an apprentice. And during that time, he wasn't making much money. And I came out making 22 and a half cents an hour. That was a big thing during that time.
Okay. And where were you living at that time?
I was living in Meridian, Mississippi. And from there, I went to Florida, Miami. Yeah.
And that was just all where you were. Where were you when the war started? In Florida?
Yes. Then I went back to Meridian, and I got drafted.
How old were you when you got drafted?
I was 20.
Were African American people being drafted at the same rate as the Caucasian people?
Yes, it was.
So were a lot of your African American friends drafted at the same time?
Yes.
Can you tell me what the draft process was? I mean, where did you go? How did you actually enter into the military?
I got a letter, and I went to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. That's Camp Shelby. I left Camp Shelby and went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and joined the Blue Helmet. That was an African American infantry outfit. They had two out there. That was the 92nd, the Buffalo outfit.
And can you tell us about the leadership of that unit? Could you tell us about the officers? Were they all white and were?
No, they was all black during that time. And then after the war picked up, so they sent in some white officers, and that made go into the 536 quartermaster. They wanted to hurry up. And then I went back to Camp Shelby to pick up the 100 Battalion of Japanese. And we all went over together. I landed in Oran, Africa.
Okay. What year was it that you went in?
I went in 42.
Could you describe right after your training, where was the first place you went overseas after your training?
Oran, Africa, North Africa.
Okay. And what was going on there at the time? What was your mission? What were you doing there at that time?
Well, we went there, and they was getting ready to invade of Italy. So it was Sicily that they went to invade, and we was going on, and so they taken over Sicily so fast that we went on down to
That's all right.
wait a minute.
Okay. Did you go from Sicily into the rest of Italy?
Yes, I went to Sicily. I mean, not to go to Sicily. Went from there to Naples, and got ready to go to the invasion of Anzio. It was Salerno where we landed at. That was southern Italy, and we came on up to Naples.
Can you describe a little bit, in case people who might be watching this don't know, what is the quartermaster? What does the quartermaster do?
The quartermaster furnished the front line with ammunition and groceries and clothes or whatever.
Supply.
Yes.
talk a little bit about, before we talk about the general war, what were your particular duties? What were you doing as an individual?
I was a bugler in the Army.
Okay. So in the quartermaster, you did the bugling.
Yes.
And what was the purpose of the bugler? Besides playing the bugle, what was the bugler?
That was the alert, the call out for action. Wake them up in the morning, load the flags, at least getting ready to the invasion of Anzio. We was out and we was going to the invasion, so we all went out to Naples drinking and came back, and my watch, it had a wind-up watch, and it went an hour early. I got up to blow the bugle, and they was running me around an hour early, and so happened the airplanes came over and strafed our outfit. Didn't nobody get killed.
Because you did your bugle too early?
Yes.
Were there other buglers in your unit, or were you the only bugler?
I was the only bugler in the company.
Okay.
See, different companies had their own bugler.
Do you remember about how many people were in your company?
I think it was 250, something like that.
During the invasion, did you carry a weapon, and what did you
Yes,
actually do combat
yes.
at all? Can you tell us a little bit about any sort of combat experience you had,
Well,
especially in Anzio?
we went to Anzio, and all we could do is peep out for 3 weeks.
What does peep out mean?
Come out your foxhole and look. Because if you didn't walk around, they had 88 would knock you down. The Indians tried to take their hill, and the British tried to take it. It was a monastery on top of that hill, see, and they didn't want to bomb it. And the German was running in there hiding, so they finally bombed it.
Okay. This was a monastery of historical importance?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get a lot of that in Italy, places that you weren't allowed to go because it had importance like that? I've heard stories about how they weren't allowed to go and they had to be careful in certain cities and so forth because they didn't want things to get destroyed.
No, during that time, it was wide open because it wasn't no law.
Do you remember at that period how your unit was in relation to the other units? Did you experience? Did the white units or the units that were largely white people? Did they interact with you any differently than they did the other?
Well,
units?
we was attached to the British Tent Corps outfit. They was ACAC for the ration dump, where we was getting ready to invade. That was the staging area of the invasion.
How did the British interact with you?
Fine. We didn't have no trouble.
So you were, they considered that you would fight as well as anyone else and all that?
Yeah.
Okay. So after Anzio, where did you proceed from there and what happened?
We went to Rome, and one of my soldiers, we went in the river, swimming, and one of the soldiers, Hagen, J. Edgar Hagen, he caught a cramp, and I got him out. I was supposed to get a citation for that, and citation for the time I served in Naples, never did.
Why do you think that was, do you know?
It's a lot of times they didn't get it to the black soldiers.
Really? Was the commendation actually put in and it just never arrived, or was it not put in?
It was probably put in. They interviewed me, and that was all.
Was your race put on your paperwork? Did they, because they wouldn't necessarily be able to know from your name, could they tell from your unit that you were African American? Or how would they know necessarily up the chain?
Well, my unit was African American.
Okay. So that's how they would know by the
Yeah.
unit you were attached to. Okay. Was there much fighting in Rome when you arrived there? How was that? Was it peaceful? Was there much fighting?
Well, it's one part of Rome, yes, one part of Rome that they didn't do no bumming and not much fighting. That was in the heart of Rome.
Was that where you were?
Yes.
Okay. How much time did you spend in Anzio, and how much time did you spend in Rome?
Anzio, we spent 3 weeks waiting before we could pull out. I would say a month.
And how long were you in Rome?
About 2 months.
Can you talk a little bit about what life in the day-to-day life in the Army was like in those days? What people tried to do to relieve the tension, or to try to just for a little entertainment? Was there anything like that you could do?
Well, you could gamble and go around sporting houses and drink. That was about all.
How did the locals react to you as an African American? Did the Italian people,
Fine.
yeah? Okay. How did you communicate with home very much? Did you write a lot of letters? How often did you write letters?
Oh, we wrote letters every day.
How often would you get mail? Did you get mail a lot, or not very often?
Not too often.
Okay. So how frequently do you think you could expect mail?
About every 2 weeks.
If and then after Rome, where did you proceed after that?
Went to Lake Home.
Okay.
That's Lavino.
And that's still in northern Italy?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe how the fighting was up there?
Well, that was a dock that we had supplies coming in, and we had the fighting was pretty rough there. And from there we went to Pisa, and we stayed in Pisa until 44. We left and went to France. We landed in Marseille.
Okay. Can you were talking about how the fighting was pretty rough in the previous port, one you just mentioned. Can you talk about any of the action that you saw there, and what your experiences were like, and how it was there?
Well, there was a lot of planes shot down, German planes. Matter of fact, the 99th Super Squadron came over and protected us after air raid once.
Do you recall, one question I ask a lot of the veterans is how they dealt with fear, and how they, faced action, and if they were afraid. Do you have any special memories of how you dealt with the fear of combat?
Well, that'll come, and after you get in combat, it'll go.
Really? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you can get so scared, afraid, till you get used to it, and you be on the alert. You have to look out for yourself and your other men. Some people go and freeze up, and you have to beat them in the head or shake them. They get scared. But the average soldier, he get used to it and start looking out for yourself and other members, That's the way of life.
Would you say that at that point you just didn't feel the fear anymore, or that you just were able to feel it but overcome it?
Feel it, but overcome it.
Okay. Were there a lot of soldiers that kind of froze up, or were the majority of the people dealing with it pretty well?
Majority deal with it pretty well.
Um, okay, we were talking about getting into France. Do you remember about what year that was by this time? By the time we were getting into France?
It was 44. We left. We went back to Livorno, that's Lakeholm, and landed in Marseille. And that was pretty rough for a while. And then they had the German on the run so fast, it was hard to keep up with them. We went into Hamburg, as I remember, Kaiserslautern, and I wound up in on the Rhine River, Mannheim.
How quickly do you remember did it take to get from the French coast into Germany? How quickly did that happen?
I'd say 2 months or less.
Can you describe a little bit what the fighting was like during that period? Was it really fast? Was it slow? How did that go?
Well, it was real fast because they had them on the run. And the only time that I know about they had a tank bell in Bell of the Bulge, and that was pretty slowed down. But we was on the other side, so they was on the run.
Pretty much the whole time.
Yes.
How did the fighting go once you got into Germany? Did it intensify? How did it go once you got actually into Germany proper?
After got into Germany, the Russian, we went up to Worms and they brought her back, said to let the Russian take over. And that's why they had the North and the South, because Russian taking over the biggest territory.
Right. How it ended up being East and West Germany.
Yes.
So you when you got into Germany, how long was it from when you got into Germany to the surrender? Do you remember?
I'd say 2 months or so, something like that. Because I remember when they said the surrender was, we was guarding a big warehouse where they taking all the eyeglasses, rims with gold, and pull the teeth of the ones that they burn up. They had gold in that. They had all the clothes, fur clothes, had bulks and bulks of material where they make suits. They had all the French whiskey and wine and everything. So when the war was over, the lieutenant said, shoot the lock off the door. And the soldiers coming back, we just gave them a case of liquor.
Do you know what happened to all that stuff that was taken from the Jews? That the eyeglasses and the teeth and all that stuff, whatever became of that?
No, it was turned back over to the army. We left. See, we left because we had 120 points. You left on points.
you remember your reaction when you found out about what had been in that, what was in that warehouse, how you felt or what you thought?
Well, we had to go and look at the camp where they kept the Jewish people, and that makes you think about what happened to them, and you would see the trains ahead of you leaving out with them and hear the whistle blowing, and that was in France.
Do you remember which camp it was?
We went to the camp in Germany.
That's okay. Do you remember, did you actually see any of the Jews still in the camp?
It was a few there.
Yeah. Do you remember what condition they looked like they were in and what was?
They was in bad condition.
Did you remember seeing anything that was being done for them by the military at that time?
Yes, the military was there, and they was making all the German people go there and look at them too. They made like they didn't know nothing was happening.
Did you believe that? Do you believe that they knew, or do you believe they didn't know?
I believe they knew.
Was there? I know that you see a lot of photos and things that there were still a lot of corpses around and things. Do you remember there being anything like that? Of the people that had been killed, the Jews that had been killed were kind of still around. Did you remember any of that?
Well, what they would do to keep down disease, when you found them dead like that, they would burn them up if they didn't bury them. They had tractors, bulldozers, bulldozing, and they would just throw them in there. That was the grave outfit.
So the Americans had to do that in order to
Yeah.
get the disease down. Is this camp is where the warehouse was that you were guarding? Is that right?
No, this was a few miles, quite a bit away from there.
Okay. What was your mission at the time when you came to the camp? Did you have any purpose at the camp, or were you just passing through the city where it was?
No, they was, see, after the war, they had us to go there and look.
Was it just to go see the camp, or did you have something that you were doing there?
No, just to go see the camp.
So they were kind of creating witnesses?
Yes, they was making other people look at them, and they was creating witness. And
what part of Germany were you in, or where were you when the actual surrender happened, when the Germans surrendered?
I was in Mannheim.
Okay. And what was the duties of your unit there in Mannheim? What was the
We was
mission?
guarding the warehouse.
Okay, you were guarding the warehouse at that time. Okay. Can you remember the surrender and what people did and how people reacted to it?
Well, the soldiers went wild. They was hollering and shooting, and it was just a wild thing.
How did your superiors react to everybody kind of shooting and running around?
Everybody doing the same thing.
Really? So the officers and everybody?
Yes.
Some of the other veterans said that in their units, the officers said, cut that out, stop doing that. In other places, they said, go ahead and celebrate.
No, my officer told us shoot the lock off the door and give all the booze away.
How long were you in Germany after the surrender?
Oh, I think maybe a month.
Okay.
Then I went to France.
So did you have any occupation duties after the war was over, or were you?
We went to France. The guard prisoners.
What would they they doing with the prisoners at that point? How were they dealing with the prisoners?
Well, some of them they would make work. They was making them cut. We was making them cut wood for the winter for the people.
I know that during Nazism that the Germans had very extreme and ugly racial views. How did the Germans react to you? Did they pretty much just consider you an American and that was it, or did you get any sense that they reacted to you because of your race?
Well, the idea about it, we wasn't allowed to talk to them, and they wouldn't. When we first got there, we wasn't allowed to talk. That was $64 or $65 question. That's what you would be charged.
Really? So that if you talk to them, that's what you would get charged? Is that what you're saying?
No, during the war, you wasn't allowed to talk to them.
Okay. Were there special people who were giving them the prisoners the orders when in order to do things? Only certain people were allowed to talk to them. Is that what I'm
Oh, we could talk to the prisoners.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I'm a little confused. You were saying that who
The civilians, we wasn't allowed to talk to the civilians.
Oh, I see. But the prisoners you were allowed to.
Yeah.
And you didn't get the feeling that the prisoners saw you any differently than the white soldiers?
No. In a way, they was glad for the black soldiers, because the white soldiers probably treating them so rough.
Really? Why do you think that was? Why do you think your company treated them differently than other companies?
I don't know.
Do you ever feel that your company or you yourself was because the Army was segregated at that time? Do you think that there was any problems because of that? Did you think that maybe that the Army didn't fight as well then, or anything like that? Do you think there was a big improvement when it was integrated?
Well, I was only integrated coming back to the States. During that time, I never was in the Army.
And when it was actually integrated?
Yeah.
Did you feel like, though, that if you were able to fight with the other soldiers without integration, that it would have made any difference?
Oh, it'd been a lot more power. That's all I know.
What do you mean by a lot more power?
You had more men there.
Did you ever hear anything about how that the white soldiers did not want to serve in units with black soldiers? Was there any assumption that something they didn't want to do?
Well, during that time, you didn't ever hear nothing about that because you wasn't with them that much.
So the black soldiers were kept pretty much apart from the white soldiers?
Yes. You meet them on the street, and you had a lot of dealing with if they were truck drivers coming in and out and getting supplies, but that was business, so.
So there was nothing that you perceived as being problematic when you beat them on the street or anything like that?
No.
How high up in the officers did it go that you still had black commanders before you got to white commanders?
Well, we had white commanders oversee all over.
Okay. Were there any black officers that in your unit?
Well, it was a black major. He was a doctor. Went over with us, but I didn't see him no more.
So he wasn't in a combat situation?
No, he was a medical doctor.
So all the officers of your unit were white?
Yes.
Do you know if they were assigned to your unit or did they volunteer for it?
They was trying to.
Okay. And they didn't seem like they resented it or anything. They seemed to be happy enough to be there.
Well, they act like they was anyway. You could.
You thought, you perceived that they were as proud of you as any other officer would be proud of their unit?
Yes, they act like that.
Can you talk about coming out of the Army and, what the process was when you were mustered out?
Well, when I was mustered out in Newark, New Jersey, when I first got out, they would search your bags to see what you bring, any guns or anything back. One thing I can remember pretty good though, they would pick up your bag and then they would throw it down, and boys had a lot of French perfume in it. But got broken.
That's what people were smuggling back from France?
Yes.
Did you bring back any souvenirs from the war?
No, I sent a German helmet back. I sent it by mail during that time.
You still have it?
No, I gave it to one of my nephews.
What did you do immediately after the war? What did you do? Was it pretty easy to go back into civilian life, or how did that go for you?
Well, during that time, they had a GI school, and I attended the school that went to Carpenter's local to get into Carpenter's. That's where I got my papers. I still belong to the Carpenters.
Still got your carpenter's card?
Yeah, retired from it.
Okay. Is that the union?
Yeah.
Carpenters Union? Chicago Regional Council of Carpenters. Very nice. Did the Army or the military pay for you to go to carpentry school?
Yes.
Okay.
You could go to school or take a trade.
Was college ever an opportunity for you at that time? Because I know a lot of the
Yes,
GI Bill.
a lot of guys went to college.
How long were you a carpenter then? For the remainder of your career? How
Oh,
many years did it end up being?
I'll be I think it's about 60, close. No, about 50 something, 50 something. I went to school in 46, and I came out and came up here in 47. I went to Florida, and they was gambling over in Cuba, and I went over and put in all the bowling alleys with Brunswick Bowling Alley.
In Cuba?
Yeah, and Cuba, Nassau, Jamaica, and I came back here, and my sister was having a baby, and they found out I was here, and so we put in Brunswick Bowling Alley in Kankakee, and I've been here ever since.
Did any of the did you ever have an opportunity, or did other people take an opportunity to make the military career after the war, or did everybody pretty much just leave?
Well, everybody was at ease, so
So nobody was really interested in doing that you were aware of?
no. Only thing I know, we would get together and talk about it.
I noticed, is it a VFW uniform you're wearing, or
American Legion.
American Legion? Did you kept up with some of your war buddies over the years?
Yes,
Quite a few.
quite a few, but all of them just about gone now.
How would you keep up with them? What was some of the things that you did?
Well, we used to meet with different members. I found out some of the guys was in Chicago Heights, and I belonged to the Elks there. I joined the Elks there, and then we would just write each other. And most of the time, we meet at the bars and just talk about it.
Yeah. Tell little stories.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, do you have any funny stories that you remember? Anything that you, when you get together with your friends, you talk about that you thought were funny?
Only thing that I know was real funny. We had a guy. He was from Mississippi, and he was talking to an Italian girlfriend. He told her, say, how come you didn't come here day before yesterday like I told you? She said, coming? So she brought him a sandwich, and come to find out, he said, what is this? And she couldn't tell him. So she kneeled down beside him and went around his legs and said, meow, meow. She got him a cat.
Do you have any other things you want to add or anything before we wrap up?
No, not as I can remember.
You guys have any other questions? Outstanding on that? What was the name of your company again?
536 Quartermaster.
Okay. Yeah.
What was, I'm kind of hard of hearing.
She asked, when you all that way you went up through Italy and into France and Germany, was that all on foot or was it in trucks?
And trucks.
Okay.
Because we had supplies, see. Everybody could drive. I know one time we had the Chapman helper. We all got drunk, and he's the only one that could drive. But we didn't know he couldn't drive.
He didn't know how.
So we went down the hill and ran into a big lot of wood down there, what the Germans had cooked. Cut. Yeah, we didn't know he couldn't drive until the guy shook us up.
She asked, did you ever see the movie Band of Brothers?
No.
No. It's about World War II. It was on HBO a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago. Have you seen any of the World War II movies, and how realistic were they?
Oh, I have. I have them all. I have.
Do you find them very realistic or not very realistic?
It's real.
And after the war was over and you came back home, did you harbor any bad feelings about the Germans or the Italians that you fought, or did you just let it all go?
No, because we picked up a little German and Italian, a little French, and we would get about it around and go to talking to each other.
Have you ever been back to France or Germany since the war?
No, I had a granddaughter to go to France. She went to France, and then she went to Africa, Frenchville, She was teaching French. She's in the Peace Corps.
Oh, okay. Before I forget, not to start us all over again, but when you were saying you were in North Africa, what was North Africa like? Was it really hot, or what was
It was
like?
hot and hilly.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, we had one guy that was faking like he got hurt on the when we was training on the Lions Peak of Huachuca Peak. They was setting out dynamite and things, bumming the road and getting you used to noise bumming around you and things. And had a machine gun shooting over your head. But anyway, he acted like he got hurt and be bent over all the time. So when we docked in over in Africa, they were calling the roll, and they had a submarine got in the harbor. He ran over the first sergeant and knocked him down in the water. He was calling the names off.
Well, if you don't have anything else to add, then I think we'll conclude.
Okay,
All right. Well, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Let me take your microphone off here before you get up.
Okay.
We just got to do one more test, okay? Could I just have you count from 1 to 10?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.